According to a new poll, Americans overall are becoming less religious than their peers now, than previous generations. Now, according to a Pew survey from the Research Center on Religious Landscape, they looked at the different factors such as markers such as church attendance, prayer, and belief in God, and found a trend, especially among young people, showing that younger people and people in general are becoming less and less and less religious over time. Now that's interesting findings. So let's go into some of the findings from this poll. Now, according to the study, the share of U.S. adults who say that the belief in God, while still high, compared with other advanced industrial countries, actually went down, reduced to about 89% in 2014 from 92% in 2007. Now, that's still a huge number. 89% of people believe in God. That's still a huge majority. So people who are freaking out, like, oh my God, literally, God is leaving the United States, we're all becoming a nation of heathens, whatever. No. 89% of Americans still believe in God. You guys can relax. All right. Religious people, calm down. Now, the proportion of Americans who say they're absolutely certain in God, however, did fall even more. It went from 63% in 2014 from 71% in 2007. So the people who are saying we're absolutely 100% certain God exists, kind of a huge drop to 63%. But that's still nearly 2/3 of Americans that are absolutely certain that there is some sort of sky god. Okay, so still very significant numbers, even though that trend is falling off. Now, the percentage of Americans who pray every day, attend religious services regularly, and consider religion important in their lives are actually down by very small, however statistically insignificant measures. So once again, we still have a majority of people in America that are very religious and that think religion is very, very important. Now, however, when it comes to among the demographics of people who have seen their religiosity fall, it's most pronounced among young people, with the study saying that only half of those born from 1990 to 1996 are absolutely certain in their belief in God, compared to 71% of the so-called silent generation, or those born from 1928 to 1945. Younger people are also less likely to pray daily at 39% compared to the silent generation, adults at 67%. Young adults are also much less likely to attend religious services. Now, on the other hand, 77% of Americans continue to identify with some sort of religious faith, and those who do are just as committed now as they were in 2007. According to the survey, 2/3 of religiously affiliated adults say that yes, they pray every day, and that religion is very important to them. Now, they break it down also by political parties, and it's not going to surprise you that Republicans are more religious overall than Democrats. Those who are not religiously affiliated found to be Democrats at 28%, compared to 14% of those who are Republicans. And about 38% of Republicans identify as evangelical Protestants, the largest religious group in the party. Catholics, interestingly enough, Catholics make up both equal amounts of both parties at 21%. So you got some right-leaning Catholics and you got some left-leaning Catholics, and they're distributed equally among the party, which I find that fascinating. Now, of the people asked, there was one that gave a really interesting answer, and this was Oriana O'Neill, and she's a 21-year-old student at Beloit College in Wisconsin, who actually was raised in a non-religious household, but still prays sometimes. Okay, she thinks that the anti-science, anti-gay rhetoric of some politicians might actually have something to do with people turning away from religion. She said, quote, "The idea of Republicans not believing in global warming is contributing to the notion that religious people are not intelligent." Interesting. Now, I have to mention the methodology of this study, right? Both the 2007 and 2014 studies surveyed more than 35,000 adults and had a margin of error of less than 1%. With that said, I want to address Ariana Onya. Anti-science, anti-gay rhetoric, that makes religious people look stupid, right? Well, and here's the thing. I'm going to defend religious people here a little bit. And by saying that there are actually a lot of very, very smart religious people. On the other hand, you also have a lot of really dumb religious people too. Let's be fair about that. You also have some dumb atheists as well. And let's be honest, stupid people exist everywhere. I'm just saying. But anyway, now I don't know if the fact that some religious people say incredibly dumb things and think the rapture is going to happen, or that gay people cause hurricanes, as we've heard before, as I've covered before, is causing young people to turn away from religion. I don't know. That said, I can say that saying that kind of bullshit doesn't exactly help your case either. It doesn't exactly make you look smart. So, now personally, I'm going to get into my own story here a little bit. I turned against religion. I became an atheist at a very, very young age. I think I was about 12. And I had grown up in a non-religious household. I did, however, go to church a few times with my cousin, of my own volition. And actually, I was part of a youth group. Interestingly enough, right? At a local church. As I said, of my own volition. I wasn't pushed into it, wasn't pressured. I was generally curious about religion. So I joined the youth group, I went to church, I studied up, and of course the questions began to mount, the inconsistencies began to mount, and at some point I was just like, okay, this is bullshit. I have more questions than I have answers, and the answers that I was given, not really good. I began to really critically think and examine the belief systems that I was presented with, and they made no sense. And after a while, I just became very, very disinterested in religion in general, as it just didn't answer any questions. So, look, I don't know how much those issues kind of play into other people's choices to reject religion, but I think, in my personal view, it's everybody's own personal experience, I think. Moving from religion to atheism, or agnosticism, or just being spiritual without actually having to identify with a large religion. It's a journey, if you will. And that journey isn't always the same for everyone else. That's why, generally, being an atheist and proselytizing about it is generally not effective, in my view, because I think people have to come to their own conclusions. They have to arrive at that. You can't really be brought into it. Now, another side note here on this issue, on why maybe people are leaving religion, is because, look at the prevalence of the internet. Look at the prevalence of information that we have. We can access almost every piece of information that we want in almost instantly. When you do that, when you have access to all of that information, it makes it easier to be able to look things up, to look up contradictions, to look up answers to questions, instead of relying on what a preacher has to tell you. And maybe that's driving this in America. Just a thought. But whatever the cause, whatever the reason for this reduction, for this trend in religiosity in America, I welcome it, because I think it's a positive trend towards embracing facts, logic, and reason, and not blind dogma.